The Power of Words by Edgar Allan Poe. Oinos pardon, agathos the weakness of a spirit new-fledged, with immortality. Agathos you have spoken nothing my oinos for which pardon is to be demanded, not even here. Is knowledge a thing of intuition for wisdom ask of the angels, freely, that it may be given. Oinos but in this existence, I dreamed that I should be at once cognizant of all things, and thus at once be happy in being cognizant of all. Agathos not in knowledge is happiness, but in the acquisition of knowledge in forever knowing we are forever blessed, but to know all were the curse of a fiend. Oinos but does not the Most High know all. Agathos that since he is the most happy must be still, the one thing unknown even to him. Oinos but since we grow hourly in knowledge, must not at last all things be known. Agathos look down into the abysmal distances attempt, to force the gaze down the multitudinous vistas of the stars, as we sweep slowly through them. Thusend, thus even the spiritual vision, is it not at all points arrested by the continuous golden walls of the universeth walls, of the myriads of the shining bodies, that mere number has appeared to blend into unity. Oinos I clearly perceive that the infinity of matter is no dream. Agathos there are no dreams in Aden but, it is here whispered that of this infinity of matter the sole purpose, is to afford infinite springs, at which the soul may allay the thirst to know which is forever unquenchable within itself to quench. It would be to extinguish the soul's self-question me, then my oinos freely, and without fear. Come we will leave to the left the loud harmony of the Pleiades, and swoop outward from the throne into the starry meadows beyond Orion, where for pansies and violets and heartsease are the beds of the triplicate and triplet-tinted suns. Oinos and now agathos as we proceed instruct me speak to me in the earth's familiar tones. I understand, not what you hinted to me just now of the modes, or of the method of what during mortality we were accustomed to call creation. Do you mean to say that the Creator is not God? Agathos, I mean to say that the deity does not create. Oinos explain. Agathos in the beginning only, he created the seeming creatures which are now throughout the universe, so perpetually springing into being, can only be considered as the mediate or indirect, not as the direct or immediate results of the divine creative power. Oinos among men, my agathos, this idea would be considered heretical in the extreme. Agathos among angels, my oinos, it is seen to be simply true. Oinos, I can comprehend you thus far that certain operations of what we term nature, or the natural laws will, under certain conditions, give rise to that which has all the appearance of creation. Shortly before the final overthrow of the earth, there were I well remember many very successful experiments in what some philosophers were weak enough to denominate the creation of animalcule. Agathos the cases of which you speak were in fact instances of the secondary creation and of the only species of creation, which has ever been since the first word spoke into existence, the first law. Oinos are not the starry worlds that from the abyss of nonentity burst hourly forth into the heavensair, not these stars, agathos the immediate handiwork of the king. Agathos let me endeavor my oinos to lead you step by step to the conception. I intend you are well aware that as no thought can perish so no act is without infinite result. We moved our hands for example when we were dwellers on the earth, and in so doing gave vibration to the atmosphere which engirdled it. This vibration was indefinitely extended, till it gave impulse to every particle of the earth's air which thenceforward, and forever was actuated by the one movement of the hand. This fact the mathematicians of our globe well knew. They made the special effects indeed wrought in the fluid, by special impulses, the subject of exact calculation so, that it became easy to determine, in what precise period an impulse of given extent would engirdle the orb and impress forever every atom of the atmosphere circumambient. Retrograding, they found no difficulty from a given effect under given conditions, in determining the value of the original impulse. Now the mathematicians who saw that the results of any given impulse were absolutely endlesand, who saw that a portion of these results were accurately traceable through the agency of algebraic analysis who saw, too, the facility of the retrogradation. These men saw at the same time that this species of analysis itself had within itself a capacity for indefinite progress that there were no bounds conceivable to its advancement and applicability, except within the intellect of him who advanced or applied it. But at this point, our mathematicians paused. Oinos and why agathos should they have proceeded? Agathos because there were some considerations of deep interest beyond. It was deducible from what they knew that, to a being of infinite understanding gone, to whom the perfection of the algebraic analysis lay unfolded there, could be no difficulty in tracing every impulse given the air and the ether through the erdo, the remotest consequences at any even infinitely remote epoch of time. It is indeed demonstrable that every such impulse given the air must in the end impress every individual thing that exists within the universe, and the being of infinite understandings, being whom we have imagined might trace the remote undulations of the impulse, trace them upward and onward in their influences upon all particles of matter, upward and onward forever in their modifications of old forms, other words in their creation of new until he found them reflected unimpressive at last back from the throne of the Godhead. And not only could such a thing do this, but at any epoch should a given result be afforded, him should one of these numberless comets, for example, be presented to his inspection, could have no difficulty in determining by the analytic retrogradation to what original impulse it was due this power of retrogradation, in its absolute fullness, and perfection, this faculty of referring at all epochs, all effects, to all causes, of course, the prerogative of the deity alone, but, in every variety of degree short of the absolute perfection, is the power itself exercised by the whole host of the angelic intelligences. Oinos, but you speak merely of impulses upon the agathos. In speaking of the air, I referred only to the earth, but the general proposition has reference to impulses upon the ether which, since it pervades and alone pervades all space, is thus the great medium of creation. Oinos, then all motion of whatever nature creates. Agathos it must, but a true philosophy has long taught that the source of all motion is thought, and the source of all thought is Oinos, God. Agathos, I have spoken to you, Oinos, as to a child of the fair earth, which lately perished off impulses upon the atmosphere of the earth. Oinos, you Roman 999 Agathos, and while I thus spoke, did there not cross your mind some thought of the physical power of words? Is not every word an impulse on the air? Oinos, but why, Agathos, do you weep, and why, oh, why do your wings droop, as we hover above this fair star which is the greenest, and yet most terrible of all we have encountered in our flight? Its brilliant flowers look like a fairy dream, but its fierce volcanoes like the passions of a turbulent heart. Agathos, they Erethe are this wild star. It is now 3 centuries since with clasped hands, and with streaming eyes at the feet of my beloved I spoke it with a few passionate sentences into birth. Its brilliant flowers are the dearest of all unfulfilled dreams, and its raging volcanoes are the passions of the most turbulent and unhallowed of hearts.